Hey, Craig, how are you, my friend?
Oh, buddy, I'm good. Thanks for having me on your show. Thanks for coming on mine. It was nice to meet you. We are probably a little bit kindred spirits, so I don't know what's going to happen in the next hour.
Probably a lot of swearing.
I think you're
I'm,
misrepresenting me. You're misrepresenting me.
no, I'm representing myself. I was like, I'm a big fan. I have to tone it down. My missus keeps telling me to tone it down. I said, I can't help it. I'm from Liverpool. This is how we talk.
Well, there's a fair bit of research to say that people that swear are more trustworthy. Maybe I'm just cherry picking this research, but more trustworthy. Some suggests more socially and emotionally intelligent. I don't know. I'm going to hold on to that.
I've,
So
I've just
yeah,
noted both of those down, mate. I'm
yeah,
taking
let's
it.
just wheel that out whenever we can, because also we're both insecure and we both need approval. But other than that, we're fucking rock stars.
I'm with you. All right, mate. Look, as I say, appreciate you coming on. What I like to do is obviously you're doing some really great stuff, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and I love your honesty and authenticity. It shines through. So I'd really like to understand who little Craig was. You know, what made this man that's sitting in front of me today doing the great work that you do. And yeah, just if wouldn't mind taking me on a high level journey of, what made you, my friend.
Thank you. So I grew up in the country in rural Victoria, and I was only kid, only child. So mum and dad are still around. God bless Ron and Mary. And yeah, I was like a really mediocre kid, not a great student, not a great athlete. I was fat. I was more, I don't know, you can say it when it's about yourself, I think. I was morbidly obese. I was the fattest kid in my school. And at school, my nickname was Jumbo. So parents and teachers and kids called me that. So very few people
Wow.
for quite a few years called me Craig. That was obviously pre political correctness. But so kind of, yeah, really, really average, and in some ways probably below average kid. Like not a genius, not a creative talent, not a great academic, not physiologically blessed, not genetically blessed. But a relatively happy kid, had good friends, good friendships, good influences. And I guess when I was about 14, I had a moment at the school swimming sports. The epiphany when I was the 14-year-old kid who weighed 95 kilos at 5'6" or 7 or something like that,
Wow.
right? So yeah, I was a big kid. Well, now to put that in context, I think I'm 5'10" now and I'm 80 kilos. So I
Well,
was literally 4 or 5 inches shorter and 15 kilos heavier when I was 14 than I
well,
am
Well, I'm
now.
six.
So
I'm 6'4" and 97 kilos. So
yeah,
putting that into comparison, mate.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh, dude, I was a big kid. So, and anyway, I had a moment, and in that moment where I was very embarrassed and humiliated, and all of the things which were creations of my own doing in many ways, but again, I was a kid. I decided that I was going to not look like that, or feel like that, or experience that, or have to be that socially anymore. And I think a lot of times when we create change or when we do something that is life changing, we make a decision, we take an action, we change a behavior. I think that is often precipitated by an event or an awakening or some kind of internal switch. And so for me, I got really humiliated at this point in time, just because I had to swim in front of all of these people and take off my t-shirt and be there in my big fat body, that I really didn't want to do this thing. And I tried to avoid it. And I went to a private boys' college where everyone had to do everything. And that's nobody's fault. But so I went through this experience, and I literally came out of the water at the other end of the pool after struggling through my 50 meters freestyle, and I probably didn't say it like this, but essentially I went, fuck it. I'm never going to feel that again. I'm never going to experience that again. I'm never going to put myself in that situation again. And yeah, I came out and I just created a new operating system. So I lost 35 kilos in about 4 or 5 months, and I went
Wow.
down to 60 kilos, probably within about 6 months, but maybe a little bit less. And so obviously losing weight and not being obese anymore, and being fitter and being a bit stronger and being a bit more, healthy and functional and operational, all of those things were good, of course, from a physiological point of view. But Interestingly for me, what kind of really was the game changer was me starting to realize my own potential, me starting to see the space between what was possible and my story about what was possible, my story about who I thought I was and the reality of who I could become. And so that kind of moment in time and those subsequent months in time were for me very cathartic and very influential and very formative in terms of how I kind of progressed from there and became a young man and started working in gyms at 18 and started, honestly becoming quite obsessed with it all, and probably not in a good way at times with health and fitness and performance. And then, eventually going to university and doing a degree in exercise science, and then becoming a university lecturer and writing the first course. I wrote the first course in Australia for with one of my friends for personal training. I opened the first personal training facility in Australia in 1990.
Wow.
I started PTing people. So I was born in 63. I started PTing people. I started in the fitness industry in 82. I started PTing people in 85. So nobody ever knew what a trainer was. I spent my life explaining to people my job, and most people thought that's not a real job. And it kind of wasn't at that stage because there was no industry, there was no regulation, there was no qualification, there was no insurance. So I'm literally doing a job that doesn't exist. I'm a personal trainer in a country where there are no personal trainers. So it was very much, trial and error. Um, and it just kind of went from there, mate. I realized early that how much I knew about bodies and anatomy and physiology and biomechanics and nutrition and exercise programming and progressive overload and all of these things that you need to know as an exercise scientist or exercise professional. I realized that how much I knew about that wasn't nearly as important as how much I understood the human inside the body, because I was pretty good with bodies, but not brilliant with humans. So probably from when I was about, and obviously I'm an exercise scientist and I've worked with athletes and teams and blokes in prison and tens of thousands of the general public, and I employed 500 trainers. And so I did all that. I worked in the fitness and strength and high performance space. But the thing that I was really fascinated with and have been ever since is how human beings work. So, now, as I said to you before we started recording, I'm in the last 4 weeks of my PhD in psychology. So it's, the last 35 years have really been me trying to understand how people work and how potential works and what success is and what failure is and, how we self-sabotage and the journey continues.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'm just looking back to that 14-year-old who, was called, as you say, very politically incorrect, called Jumbo even by teachers. That would have had
Yeah.
a massive, massive impact on you. Um, and obviously it would have been, seems like part of the drive of the person, in front of me today. Is that something that you've had to kind of unpick and process and kind of come to terms with as you've got older? Has there been some kind of trauma that you've had to go through there?
Honestly, I try to be really self-aware around this, and I look back and I think, were any of the people who called me Jumbo, like my best friends called me Jumbo. So there was no malice. They actually loved me, but I was just this big, huge kid, and it didn't. It I don't think it really traumatized me, but trauma is an interesting thing, and being affected emotionally and mentally by things is it's complicated. Um, when I look back, I don't think that anyone was trying to hurt me. I think I got picked on for being fat, and that was very overt and very obvious. Um, and there was probably, I don't know that trauma is the right word, but a bit of, I guess, sadness and or anxiety around being bullied or picked on for how I looked and for my weight. But at the same time, I think, while I wouldn't suggest that for anyone, and I don't think, in an ideal world, there'd be no bullying, there'd be no criticism, there'd be none of that. But we don't live in that world. And I look at my childhood compared to many other childhoods, and I'm like, well, Craig, your trauma was a 1 out of 100. So I don't, on no level do I think I had it hard. I had a few very minor social challenges, but for the most part, I look back with fondness and gratitude. I grew up with great parents, great friends, great time, great environment, had all the opportunities. We weren't by any means wealthy. Like, I don't know how my parents paid for me to go to a private school. I feel there's a bit of sacrifice in there. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, nothing but gratitude, mate.
That's beautiful. And the thing you touched on there about, I think in the pain, that's where we get our lessons. That's what gives us those drivers. So being that 14-year-old, 95 kilos guy has
Yeah,
driven you
yeah,
to where you are today. You've used that, and I think you touched on there, you know, if people talk at traumas, and everybody at school, I believe the majority probably would have been bullied at some stage. I remember being bullied when I was, I don't know, about 14, 15. I came back,
yeah,
I lived in a different area, and it
yeah,
was the summer holidays, and I was away from all my friends for a period of time from the school. And then I came back, and for some reason I felt a bit shy. I thought, oh, they've all been buddies together. I've been a bit, and I came back, and I just sat back a little bit more. And I noticed
yeah,
kids are very, kids are a lot different than maybe when you're adults. And me being silent must have signaled this weakness that then they
yeah,
came through, and I sensed this bullying, and it was difficult. But you talk about it's a 1 to 100, because but also everybody's biggest pain is their biggest pain, because there's a lot of people I've had on
yes,
the podcast who've had sexual abuse,
yes,
physical abuse, real traumatic events. But at that moment in time, that was my biggest traumatic thing. And I remember thinking to myself, this life's shit. It's not
yes,
worth it, And I was genuinely starting to question stuff, because I hated going to school. So I hated the existence of it, only for a short period of
yeah,
time. But it got pretty dark, think about it. But if you put that on a spectrum of somebody over there, of the people I've spoken to, nowhere near. And similar to yourself, I had a mum and dad who, up until obviously recently, my dad's just passed, they stayed together 56 years. But even within those dynamics, I've seen things that, hang on a minute, sometimes there's a lot of arguing, there's a lot of this. I felt like I was in fight or flight quite a bit. I had two
yeah,
brothers, but
yeah,
one took a bit of a road path. So
yeah.
although it wasn't as severe as others, I do think it's worth calling out, Craig, that those dark times can feel very dark when we're in them, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And it's not to devalue anyone's feelings. It's a really tricky thing, like, grief and trauma and sadness and mental health, um, to try to navigate that and realize, it's like a really interesting thing is when you see, say, three people in the same situation. And in that situation, one person is traumatized and one person is curious and one person is unaffected. And you go, oh, well, is that a traumatic situation or not? And you go, well, two people are not traumatized, one is. And this is not to be critical. This is to try to dig into, how does trauma work? How does mental health, how does anxiety work? Um, you go, oh, that's a stressful situation. And you go, well, how come that guy or that girl isn't stressed? In the middle of that situation, why is that person not stressed? And that's because the situation doesn't cause the stress. It might create a trigger in an individual, but if a situation was, let's say, universally, categorically stressful, then every person in that situation would experience the same emotional state, which is stress, which is distress, which is anxiety. And so part of navigating trauma and grief and mental health and sadness and anxiety is not, like you said, it's not to say you're good or bad. It's not to say this is more traumatic than that. It's not that at all. It's starting to understand the self, the me, the individual, and the way that, like my stories, and to understand the relationship between your stories and your mind and your physiology. So if, for example, I am in a situation and you are in the same situation next to me, you and I are in the same room on the same day, being exposed to the same stimulus. And in the middle of that moment in time, sitting next to you in that room, my story is, we are in danger. This is terrifying. This is bad. Something terrible is going to happen, etc., etc. Like, this is my story. Then the fear response, or the emotional response, is fear and anxiety and dread and anger, perhaps. And then the physiological response is my sympathetic nervous system kicks in, my blood pressure goes up, my heart rate goes up, my body starts producing adrenaline and cortisol, and blah, blah, blah. There is this cascade of physiological consequences as a result of my story. Then all of a sudden, I am legitimately and genuinely in a state of stress. And my body would tell you that. Conversely, old mate Ian sitting next to me, cool as a cucumber, is like, well, this is not stressful at all. This is fine. And you're thinking about what you're going to have for lunch once we get out of the room, right? So you are next to me in the same place on the same day. I'm producing cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. You're producing dopamine and a bit of serotonin or whatever because you're actually having a bit of a good time. Your heart rate's low, your blood pressure's low, your parasympathetic nervous system's just cruising along because you're calm. And then you go, well, how does that work? Well, that works that way because people respond differently to the same thing. And the way that we respond, even physiologically, is often a byproduct of the story that we tell ourselves about what is happening. If my story is I'm in trouble, then my body believes it. My nervous system, my cardiovascular system, my respiratory system, my endocrine system believes it because my body can't distinguish between my bullshit story and the objective truth. The subjective story of Craig will be the determinant of my physiology in that moment, not the objective reality of the room, which is why you're in a good state, I'm in a shit state. And understanding how this works is really fucking important for people. That's not, and by the way, this is not about self-loathing. This is about self-awareness. This is like, oh, you know what creates anxiety in my life? I do.
Oh, mate, again, great kind of overview there with depth and simplistically explained. And as you're describing that, I'm kind of reverse engineering the way that you use this as a strategy, right? Because what you're just describing to me is that's why I think the importance of gratitude, of the story that you're telling yourself on a daily basis. And what am I looking
Yeah.
at? What's my brain looking at? What am I thinking
Yeah.
about? Because I become that. I often describe, if I'm having a really shit day, and I've had a few shit days recently, that I have this moment in time. I love fucking Australia. I always wanted to come here. I had something in me from when I was younger. I came here when I was 21. I spent 6 weeks here. I thought, I'm going to move there. Life events happened, ill-fated marriage, this, that, and the other. And I didn't come here till I was 35, 36. And I remember the moment I landed here and I got the job. And it was this overwhelming feeling of joy, which just consumed the shit out of me. I can remember that moment. And it gets rid of all the crap in my body. And I just
Yeah.
remember that. And it's like, in that moment of high gratitude, love, the highest frequency, nothing else can live there. And
Yeah.
I'll preach it to the day I die, that people don't realize there's a strategy to change your physiological and mental state that is there for you. And it's not as complex and hard as sometimes as people believe. And
Yeah.
what you've just described there, it's the story that we tell ourselves. I've just been back to the UK. I've got two brothers. All three of us see the world totally differently. And that thing that you're describing, I was sitting in the room, and what you described happened. Three of us
Yeah.
were seeing, reacting differently, and three different things. And there's a certain person, I won't say a brother, it could be, might be, who sometimes sits in that victim mentality.
Yeah.
And bloody hell, that's painful. And I'm witnessing it. And I'm going, you are creating this crock of shit, whether it be your relationships that aren't working, whether it be this situation that you're sitting in this darkness and you're staring at this darkness. Well, is that what this life's about? Do we have to, it's like with grief. Do I love my dad less if I'm not sitting and staring at the grief all day? Or
Yeah.
not? What is
Yeah.
life about?
Good question.
Is life about learning from that and honoring that, and trying to, how do I look at grief? And that's something I'm trying to explore now. I'm over here, I'm extracted from the situation. Sometimes I feel a bit distant from it, and there's a question, and I'm asking myself, should I be sitting in this more? Should I be more upset? Because if I want to, I can go look at it and put sad music on, my dad's sad music, and stare at his face and read the letter that I wrote on the eulogy, and I'll cry my eyes out. what is that? And that's another question that I would maybe pose to you, because that's something that I'm kind of working through at the moment.
Yeah. It's so funny. We have these ideas of how things should happen and how we should be when they happen. And Ian, you know that there's multiple steps of grieving, and you need to grieve the right way for the right amount of time in the right chronological. It's like, well, how about fuck that? How about how do you feel, mate? Well, I feel actually, I don't know why I feel okay. Cool. We're not pretending that dad didn't pass away. We don't not love dad. We're not being disrespectful. I think, there's no set. It's like, what's the best way to lose weight, Harps? I don't know. Who are you? It's probably involves some food, some exercise, some sleep, maybe a supplement, maybe not, maybe some decisions, maybe some fucking resilience, maybe some consistency. I can give you 40 different ingredients to help you lose weight. Oh, cool. What's the best way to build a business? Well, sit the fuck down. Let's workshop that. What's the best way to grieve? It's the same. Like, we have this stupid mentality that there is only one way to create this particular outcome. And the thing is that you are not me and I am not you. What will work for you could be a fucking disaster for me. I can eat a handful of nuts and I go, that's a healthy snack. One of my friends eats one nut, they have a fucking anaphylactic reaction. So it's not, are nuts good or are nuts bad? It's about the individual response to the same stimulus. It's like talk therapy. A lot of people think talk therapy is the solution to all problems. That's absolutely unequivocally not true. Talk therapy is really good for some people and not so great for other people. And it's not that talk therapy is categorically good or bad. It's just not optimal for everyone. It's just like, hey, should I train with dumbbells, barbells, and free weights or pin loaded machines? Well, let me find out about your body and your background and your injuries, and let's have a talk and let me see what you can do. And then I will help you make a decision. Like this idea, right? So, mate, you just fucking grieve. But I also think, let's not overthink it. Let's not get up and go, oh shit, what should I be oh, re my grief. What should I do to fucking just do life, bro? And if you're sad, you're sad. If you're happy, you're happy. Don't feel guilty for being happy. Don't feel guilty for being sad. Like, we overthink the fuck out of things and we invest our time and emotional energy in things which do not give us a good return. Like, you obsessing about how you should grieve is a waste of your time.
No, I appreciate that, brother. And going back to that kind of that victim mentality of, and the term may be overused, but there's people in and around my world who I just watch and I just think, like the conversation we're having now. You're talking to me, I'm talking to you. There's an awareness. I can understand what you're saying. I grab it and go, that makes sense. That doesn't. I buy that. I don't buy that. But I can consume the language. There's people I think cannot consume our language at times. They just haven't got the level of consciousness. I always say people level conscious 1 to 5, and the certain people I just think you can't consume this. And my thing is, and I'm witnessing people who, like we've just been saying, as you were describing stuff to me, I'm reading it. There's a story coming in place, and I can then we just spoke about gratitude, and we nod to each other and we explain and we go, okay, now I might not do all these things every day, but it brings it back to the forefront of my mind. I'll probably come off this thing, I'll get some stuff from it, and I'll do something. But there's other people, and I think this is where a lot of large parts of the suffering is coming from. There's a language barrier to a lot of people. So they're suffering. They're either suffering in silence, or the telling everybody under the sun about the suffering and making it worse. But I think there's a language barrier to get to these people, and I think there's so much awareness out there, but the suicide rates keep increasing. The mental health crisis keeps increasing. I think we spoke on your podcast, I think there's no shortcomings in information. Anywhere we go, I can type into, now with AI, I can type anything in, I'll get battered with everything, right? But I think there's a real language barrier. My question to you is that something that you see, and what do you believe is an antidote to that? How can we tackle that? Because there's a huge crisis, but some people just can't understand the language.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think there's two things that come to mind. I'm going to answer that immediate question second, but I'm going to speak to something else first. First thing I think is, let's say you recognize that I've got a problem and you're my friend, you're educated, you're knowledgeable, you're compassionate, you love me, you care about me, you want the best for me, but I might not be interested in what you've got to say. So you can have the right language, you can have the right intentions, you can have the metaphors, the stories, all of that, and I'm like, hey, Ian, fuck off. Right?
Can I ask you a question on that point there?
Yeah.
Is that 90% of the time ego, do you believe?
I think it's fear. I think it's fear, because if you're right, then I'm going to have to own up and step up and listen to you and do something. And I'm terrified. I'm a man and I'm terrified of everything. And this fucking shell, this ego, this bullshit, this alpha male fucking thing that I'm wearing, it's all bullshit. It's all hiding fear and all of that stuff, right? So that the problem is that sometimes we, and I mean you and me and people like us, we have good intentions because although we're flawed, we try to do the right thing. And you fuck up, I fuck up, welcome to humanity, right? But there have been many times, and I do it less and less because I've learned my lesson, where I would, with very good intentions, try to help someone who actually needed help, but they didn't want the help. And so in the middle of that, me trying to tell them how it was going to work and what they should do, and I go, I know you're a bit fucked up, but I've got answers and I'm educated and I've been down there, and that's cool. All I would do is I would create more disconnection than connection and more problems than solutions. So recognizing that somebody needs help is not the same as someone asking you for help. And so we need to be very careful about, one, if at all we approach that, or two, if we do, how we approach that. Now, pursuant to your initial question, Your Honor, language really matters because, like, if I talk about my research with my doctorate, I talk about, metacognition and theory of mind and metaperception and meta-accuracy and all of these fancy fucking words and the consensus effect and all of this psychological language that is actually relevant for every human that's got a brain and a mind. It's broadly, universally relevant. But if I just start talking like a researcher or a scientist, the average person who is not dumber than me, it's just a different language. In fact, a lot of people are smarter than me that have never set foot in a university, right? You're one of those people. You're a very fucking smart human. And I was very impressed with you. Your natural intellect, social, emotional, and intellect is through the roof, right? And I mean that genuinely.
Thank you.
Yeah. But then, so Craig needs to understand, well, how do I share this thought, this idea, this message, this encouragement, this insight in a way which resonates with Ian, which resonates with this audience? Because, in fact, my whole PhD is around trying to understand the Craig experience, or in your case, trying to understand the Ian experience for an audience, be that an audience of one at a coffee table, or an audience of fucking 10 million on the television, right? And so I need to try to understand not only how other people perceive me and whether or not this message is landing, but I need to try to understand what is their language, what is their level of knowledge, what is their current psychological, sociological, emotional state in this moment. Not what do I want to say at them. I need to try to understand their present emotional and psychological state so I can build rapport, build trust, build respect, build connection. And then once I have that level of real world, in the moment, interpersonal engagement, then I can carefully wheel out some ideas and information.
You're looking at something there?
Did you hear me then or no?
Yeah, I heard you. I just thought I thought you froze then because you were staring to the left. So
no, sorry, mate.
What you've just described there is kind of really, really interesting for me. And if I look back at everything that I've been through over, my 47 years and all of the work I'm doing at the moment, there's not many men who are actively going to reach out. They suffer in silence, and they don't even know that they need help. They don't even know they need help. Then they're in this. I talk about that suicidality risk, and I've got this matrix of 20 questions. If anybody sits below 15, they're at risk as far as I'm concerned, because they've got no things to clamber to. They've got no health and fitness. They've got no internal work. They've got no safety net, and they don't even know. So for me, and the work that I'm trying to do and scale, and talking to incredibly smart people like yourself, can only add value, because we're at the early stages of what we're trying to achieve. Is how do we bring awareness to the people who aren't aware, who aren't looking? It's not even about sometimes, it's about, they might just, this language might get them in passing, they could be, oh,
Yeah.
bump, and it sticks to someone, and they go, oh, I just heard something there that resonated with me. Now I'm going to come on board. And that's why, because of what's happening, there's got to be a commonality messaging that needs to be getting banged out on repeat for humanity right now, because it's not landing. Everything that's out there, whether Ian, Craig, fucking Tony Robbins, fucking whoever else,
Yeah.
it ain't
Yeah.
landing
Yeah.
with the people it needs to land with. They're suffering, they're in silence, and they're killing themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm really intrigued, and I'm hell bent on solving this. And my one is about, number one, I believe we have to stay away from the word suicidality because of the stigma. We have to have this kind of community brotherhood, and the manly side of it. We're coming together as men, right? Because
Yeah.
and having this collective thing, but then is attractive to people to come in. And once they come into our safe space, making sure that the language is simple, so fucking simplistic that it captures. And again, I'm not belittling anyone. It might be of the lower intellect, or the people who haven't been through the school system to a level that other people have, and I think that's the success equation. The success equation is simplifying the shit out of it. And how
Yeah.
do we draw people in? Not into an Ian, into a small community or a Craig workshop, or it's bigger than that. It's
Yes.
and,
100%.
do you know what I mean? And I'm trying to, and I'm almost asking, what's your opinion, or what ideas do you have to pull these people through who are taking their own lives?
Yeah. So I think when people are, I work with a lot of people who are struggling, and we are talking before about my problems. If on the 1 to 100, mine are a 1, right? So my overwhelming every day. If it's not my default, I try to make it that is just gratitude. But I think with people who, especially blokes, because and again, I actually think some blokes are better than people think. Everyone goes, "Oh, men are all fucking idiots. They can't." That's not true. It's not true. Um, and no, culturally, we really haven't been historically supported to be overly expressive and emotive and conversational around feelings and all of that. But that's slowly becoming a thing of the past. But having said that, I think ladies are generally better, but I think blokes are improving. So well done, blokes. But I mean, you're an alpha male, right? But you're also a compassionate dude. But you're a blokey bloke, and I'm a little bit the same. I think what people need is they need to know that you are authentic, that you or me, that you are coming from a place of love, that this is not a strategy to build a business or make dough, right? I say to people all the time, like I've written 7 books. I reckon in two, I don't know, 2,100 episodes of a podcast, I have never once advertised any of my books. I've never, ever encouraged anyone to buy one book. I don't talk about it. I never sell anything. I never push programs. You can go to my whiteboard, my Instagram, which is all handwritten whiteboards. There are over 6,000 posts, and there might be, in 6,000, there might be 10 where I'm letting people know I've got a workshop coming up, right? Because one, I make enough dough talking to fat blokes in suits, right? I can just rock up, do that. And I know you're not allowed to say that. I don't care. They know I'm fucking with them, right? Right. I turn up and I talk to them, and they know I love them. And and the amazing women that are part of the crowd as well, right? I just turn up and I do my thing and I fuck off and I get paid well. So it's not like, oh, I need money from all of my, I don't, because money's not a high value for me. That's not to say that, it shouldn't be for anyone else, right? I'm just speaking personally. But what I try to be, and this is just my philosophy, the biggest compliment for me is when people meet me and talk to me and go, oh my God, you know what I love? I go, what do you love? They go, I love that you're exactly the same here at the coffee shop as you are on the podcast. I love that is actually how you are. And because I don't have a persona, I don't get on the podcast and go, g'day everyone, welcome to the U Project. It's Harps, episode number coming up today. There's none of that. It's just like, you're a bit of a fuckwit at times and you're a genius at times. Welcome to being, me too. Do I ever fuck up? Yes. Am I smart? Depends on what room I'm in. Sometimes I'm the dumbest in the fucking room, right? But I think if people know that you have integrity and authenticity and that you are coming from a place of love, this is going to sound weird and I probably shouldn't even fucking say it, but I'm going to be vulnerable. When I was 30, I was a millionaire when a millionaire was a lot. So that's 32 years ago. I owned multiple businesses. I had a beautiful house. I had a beach house. I had cars. I had all kinds of shit. I was writing for the Herald Sun. I was making lots of dough. And in the middle of all of that, I was fucking miserable, bro. And I'm not saying one caused the other. I'm just saying, so you can actually be, in inverted commas, successful and simultaneously sad and anxious and not sleeping. Well, then that idea that I had of what success is and what that would mean emotionally and mentally, that for me, that was a flawed concept. And so, that kind of exposed me to the truth, my truth anyway, early on, that wealth is about a lot of things that may or may not involve money. Wealth is about love and kindness and connection and belief and truth and gratitude and self-awareness and compassion and empathy. And that sounds cheesy and cliche, but I really don't care. So, I think if people see that in you,
I love that. And no, I don't think it's cliche and I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's absolutely right. And I think I said the two questions that I got this from one of the guys earlier in the podcast, this line, and I think that's something I try to live by. It's that question of, are the actions I'm about to take or the words I'm about to speak going to intentionally cause harm to others? Now, if the answer to that is yes, I am going to do that, then I'm not being a good human. I'm going against the collective of humanity. And that's why I say we are collective consciousness. We're all drops from the same ocean. And, and I believe that is what we're trying to get to. And my thing is, if we're all drops of the same ocean, some of these droplets aren't hearing this message and they're suffering in silence. They haven't got the tips and the tricks and the simple shit, the stuff that you've spoken about, which I'm thinking gratitude is such a game changer. I don't do it enough. When I do it, it changes my state and all the shit can't live there. And I think if we get rid of all of these pills and stuff that people then get associated to, they're going to go, no, I am this and I have to take these pills. They then live in vanilla land for the rest of the days. They self-identify with this fucking illness. And they're not giving themselves kind of an opportunity to experience life, and they usually decline. I'm witnessing that with a couple of friends around me at the moment. So I totally agree with you there. And you talked about those things within, people and emotional intelligence and honesty and authenticity, and it does shine from you. I said this at the beginning. And I think when you talk about, people in suits and stuff, that is one of the things. The reason why, and again, I told you I'd send you an email with the kind of mission that we're on. I'm already working with companies at the moment, and one of the biggest things that I see is most people in organizations are wearing a mask. They're just wearing this mask more so than even in everyday life. We all wear masks, but it's like, I want to wear a mask to my boss because I don't want to piss them off, because I want to get that, pay increase. I want to get that, I need to get to where I need to get to. And they're all kind of performing, sometimes more so than others. And I believe as leaders, genuine leaders, if we can remove our mask and actually have a conversation with people where that that's not a mask, and that leads in with the vulnerability dissolves the mask. It dissolves the mask. And if we all, it's like the biggest thing I say in an organization, I've seen it time and time again. You get these, stereotypical bosses who are, high performers, driving for the business forward. somebody comes through to them with their team and they might have been doing something wrong for 5 years, and they identify and go, oh shit, I've cocked up, and it might have cost a bit of money and stuff. That boss then, berates them, gives them shit, this, that, and the other. What's going to happen? That person's going to close up, put a bigger mask on. They'll never reveal where the problems are within an organization. And we then block, what it is. And I think that happens within society. That's like a microcosm within the workplace. And what we're talking about is authenticity, vulnerability. If we all just drop the fucking mask, everybody's having relationships with things that aren't real. It's all a
Yeah.
facade. And it's so important within business because that's how we identify where our best return on effort is to improve a business.
Yeah.
And I think it's so many people talk about it. It's on the walls, but it's fucking bullshit. It's on the walls. It's on the laptop, and they don't realize that to connect with somebody, it's not actually that hard. You've just got to be real and ask yourself, am I being real? Do you know what I mean? I don't know what you've experienced within the workplace.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you. Also, I think there's an element of social awareness and social intelligence that needs to be injected into that, because people are at different stages of their developmental journey. Like 47-year-old Ian, he could rock up and chat to 23-year-old Ian, and 23-year-old Ian would think 47-year-old Ian was a fucking idiot because 23-year-old Ian wasn't ready, right?
100%.
So it's like, yeah, that's true. What you're saying is true or relevant or appropriate, but this person isn't where you are. And you can't make them be where you are mentally and emotionally and developmentally. So that's where wisdom and judgment and social intelligence and situational awareness come in, where you go, even though I have some insight and some wisdom and some knowledge that could help this person, it is not appropriate that I share it. And that's
Well,
just wisdom.
no, I totally agree. But how do you foster the truth within an organization? Remove the mask to collectively the majority of the workforce. We need to hear the truth. That's why we identify problems. We understand how people tick. We bring in those ideas because a lot of people who sit silent in meetings because they're afraid that they might get clipped for something wrong. So we don't get those, we get those people a bit more silent who might have fantastic ideas, and in an organization we might not get them. So what would your kind of tip be then to foster truth as much as possible through organization, considering those social kind of elements?
Oh, that's tricky, dude. I mean, depending on which research you look at, that maybe, I'm just saying maybe, everyone, maybe 20% of CEOs are sociopaths, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Right? You've heard that, or a
yep,
similar figure. So that's
yep,
1 in 5. Well, good luck
yeah,
telling that guy or that girl that you disagree with them.
100%.
Yeah, that is not a great career move. Oh, no, I was really honest and now I don't have a job. So, like being honest and being truthful and being direct, it seems like that's what we should all do. But there
So with
needs
that
to be
said,
consensus on that.
Craig, it has to come from the top, right?
Oh, one of like I've been a leader of sorts my whole life, in that I've managed people, led people, coached people. I'm not saying I'm a great leader, by the way. It just happens to have been my journey. But when I employed my first person, like in my company, I was 26. I had no idea how to do that. I didn't know how to be a good boss or a good role model but I kind of, like you, I think you and I are quite similar, because you've kind of figured stuff out experientially and in the moment. And I figured it out as I went along. And we used to have these monthly staff meetings. At this stage, when we had these monthly meetings, I had 3 different gyms. And I used to get all of my staff members to one of the gyms. It was usually Friday at midday when we were the quietest. I'd get all of them to my main gym, which was a huge place in Brighton, on the Nepean Highway in Victoria. I'd get everyone there and we'd sit down and I'd try and make it pretty productive, pretty light, pretty quick. But the first thing that I would say to my group is, how am I going? I go, don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me what I need to hear. Don't be inappropriate. Don't be a bitch or don't be a prick just for the sake. But if I am doing, in your eyes, if I'm doing a bad job, tell me what it is. I will take it on board and I will do my best to address it. And so for me, realizing that I'm flawed, realizing I'm not the best boss, I'm not the best leader, realizing that they are going to talk about me anyway, realizing that they think that I could do things better anyway. As much as my ego didn't want to hear it, it was actually, it didn't always prove to be fruitful, but you can't do much more than that. So yes, you are absolutely right. I think it needs to start at the top. I think the boss, the leader, whoever she or he is, needs to walk the talk, because what you do teaches people way more about you than what you say. You can say all the words, but unless the words are backed up with behavior and consistent behavior, people won't trust you or believe you.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I've seen that. I've seen that time and time again. I remember in a large organization I was working for, as I said, I've been in senior roles similar to yourself and led large kind of companies and whatnot. But I found the higher up I got, the more I was aware of the bullshit. I was like, because when you're down here, you think, up there, it must be like, they're like gods, you know what I mean? We've got this philosophy and stuff, but then you kind of realize, hang on a minute, this is pretty horrendous. The way they're talking, they really don't give a shit about the people. And it's like, they're just driving for the dollars. And what I always think is, they don't understand that you can, if you do it the right way, it's not like all fluffy, just people. There's a business to be run, and we have to make big decisions, and we have to, coach people sometimes. There's a lot of people I've removed out of organizations because they were never going to change. And unfortunately, that happens. But there's an ethos. The reason that would be done is to protect others within the organization, for example. And I think there's a big lack in what I saw. And I went through my toughest time. I remember looking out on Coogee Beach as the manager director of a business and achieving my goals, living exactly in the area I want to live when I used to be in the UK. I used to be pissing down Liverpool, go for runs, wind chap. That was my suntan. It was fucking wind and rain, and I'd have a red face. Now I've got bronze tan, running in the sun, fantastic coffee. But I was looking at the beach going, is this it? Earning more money than I've ever earned.
Yeah.
The job that I always wanted, and I'm looking out at the water going, and I couldn't even experience the water and the beach, the thing that I wanted, because I was so frustrated in my head with the toxic things I was witnessing from the people. I was trying to protect my team, and I was hearing such horrendous things. Going back to those questions, are the actions or the words I'm about to speak or take, they were happening left, right, and centre. And they were happening on my watch with people above me. And I was trying to protect my team, and it was so harsh that over a period of time I had to exit. I couldn't exist in this anymore, because that's the thing. If you genuinely are a good human being, there's only so long that you can sit in that environment, because it's so toxic for you as a human being that you're going to go pop, and you have to remove. And so as leaders, we have to look out for underneath us. But as a leader, if you've got someone above you, you've got to protect your own energy as well, because what I've seen a lot, I call them, I've used my own little term, unhappy journeymen. The people who kind of maybe want to aspire for things, and they get all these clips and they haven't got that role that they want to. And then you look at them thinking, you're quite smart, but you've accepted you're in this company. They've been there like 30 years and they've just accepted that this is it. But you can see life, it just kicked the shit out of them. They don't put the head above the pulpit. They don't defend the team. They just go along for the ride, and they can talk the talk when they need to for customers and stuff. And I just look at them and go, unhappy journeyman. And I used to look at them and think, I never want to be one of you. But I felt myself getting kicked along at some point like that. Does that make sense to you in the corporate environment? Is that something that you've seen or experienced?
Yeah. I mean, I think zooming backwards from the micro of that story, zooming back to the macro of, most of us are going to work, not all of us, but a lot of us are going to work for about 40 years, right? 50 years, 45, whatever. I think it's really important that we think about that, the impact of the impact that we have on those that we work with. And, and you've done this and I've done this, if your work can intersect with your passion and your purpose, and your people skills and your person, if you can actually Like I realized early on, I wrote about this the other day. I didn't want a job. I wanted to work, but I didn't want a job. I was shit at having a job. I was shit at having a boss. I don't like working in that ecosystem. It's like, oh, clock on at this time, go home at that time, and basically do a version of that for the next 10 years. Oh, fuck, punch me in the face now, right? So, and it's not good or bad, but it's not good for me. So I think trying to recognize where do I flourish, in what environment, in what situation, in what context, doing what job with what people might I flourish? Because if I'm flourishing, then I'm going to be fucking great to be around. Or at the very least, I'm going to be better to be around. I'm going to be a better teacher, better problem solver, better conflict resolver, a better human, a better connector, a better communicator, more compassionate, more loving, more empathetic, more aware, because I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And what I'm not meant to do is a job. Fuck that. That's not what I'm meant to do. Now, I'm not superior or better, but me and a job don't work. I haven't had a job since I was 26, which was 36 years ago. I don't, this sounds melodramatic. I don't even know if I'd be alive if I had a job. If I had to just rock up and do, now for other people, their job equals fulfillment and purpose and growth. So jobs aren't bad. As I said before, almonds aren't bad. This workout's not, again, I'm not anti-job or career. I think for probably the majority of people, having the right job with the right organization and the right conditions is really smart.
I love that, and I can even dial into a little bit more, and we'll close this out shortly. But like, I remember being in a corporate environment and kind of going, what do I really like to do? And I found myself one time. I created this kind of, I used to call it the execution of excellence. I created my own thing in this organization I used to have. And once a week within the day, I had multiple warehouses. I go to these warehouses and bring all these managers together, and they would kind of talk to me about what they'd done. And I had a segment each week in this thing. And I found myself one time in complete flow, had this unbelievable feeling of just, when you've got the whole audience and they're looking at you and you've got this collective consciousness. And I thought, and I lost time and I went, what the hell was that? And I was like, I think I'm meant to do this. I think I'm meant to do this. Now, if I put that to years later, I carried on. I started an accident business. I've just exited that. I now do this and I'm focusing. But I've worked within organizations, worked for another leadership company. I've done workshops, but the workshop wasn't mine. And I was standing there talking. I didn't get the flow state. It felt like a job. I wasn't as passionate about the thing I was talking about, if that makes sense, because I was talking about something else. Now, so it's not, sometimes the job can actually be, what are you passionate about? What are you feeling? Do you know? And that's something that I think a lot of people in their job and what they do, there'll be aspects of the where they'll go, and it's be conscious and think about what it is that you really, really enjoy. Because people ask, how do you find your passion? How do you find your purpose? It's that excitement that sometimes that comes across, but if you're not aware of it, it can skate past you. And I think it doesn't always have this overwhelming feeling, and not everybody's going to get the Craig thing, or even where hopefully I'm going to get to with the Ian thing. But you can improve your job. You can improve the enjoyment of your job. It could be a 60-40. It could be a 60 enjoy, 40 grind, rather than a 90 grind, 10% enjoy. You know what I mean? And I'm just thinking, think about those exciting things. Where did you get a bit of a flow, and where did you get that enjoyment? And it really, really resonated with me, that.
Yeah, man. Look, I think a really good question for all of us to ask is, how do I manage me? How do I manage my mind and my body and my emotions and my choices and my relationships and my money and my career? And where do I work best? How do I work best? Like what lights me up? It's like right now I'm in my office at home. I have a recording studio downstairs, a beautiful commercial quality recording studio. Right outside my window, I've got a whole garden full of 40-foot tall bamboo trees. I've got a gym in the front garden, which is fucking beautiful. I've got all this, and I'm not, if that sounds braggy, I apologize. What I've done is I've built an environment where I work best. Right now I'm wearing shorts and bare feet. I never wear shoes ever unless I have to wear shoes. I never wear long pants. Fuck long pants. Like, I almost resent having to put on long pants, right? And it's not, like every day I get up, I put on pair of cargo shorts and a black t-shirt usually, and I walk down the road and I get some coffee and I sit there and I think about shit and I go, how good's my life? And by the way, I can walk. How lucky am I? By the way, I don't live in poverty. How lucky am I? By the way, my life's not under threat. I don't live in a war zone. How blessed am I? By the way, somebody loves me, at least a few people, God knows why. Like when you navigate, when you do a treasure hunt on your life, when you go, not what's wrong, but what's right, what's fucking great. You know, one of my best friends got blown up 8 years ago the other day, December 1. So yesterday he got blown up in an industrial accident by gas bottles, and he was meant to die in inverted commas. Then he was meant to be a paraplegic, and he was meant to be essentially brain dead, and so on and so on. I used to go visit him in the hospital. He was in a coma for a long time. Then he came out of a coma. They couldn't believe that he didn't die. Then they couldn't believe he's got a traumatic brain injury and a spinal cord injury, and they didn't believe that he didn't die. And then they were saying to everyone who would listen, well, he'll never walk, he'll never talk, he'll never have any quality of life. And I used to go and just talk to him and go, mate, that's all bullshit. You know, it's bullshit. I know it's bullshit. Stop fucking around. Let's get you in the gym and let's rehab you. And 6 months after he was meant to be dead, I started rehabbing him in the gym in a wheelchair. And now he walks and now he talks and now he's operational and functional. He's in pain and he's not brand new, but he drives himself to the gym. I see him 3 days a week. He's 1 million times more inspirational than I will ever be. And because he's in my life, I just thank God that I can walk. I can open a fridge and there's food. I can get out of this chair. I can stand up and give you a fucking hug. I can, can you do that? Can you, for somebody who's in a wheelchair, like my friend Joel Sardi, who's a quadriplegic, Joel can't say, oh, I'm not doing quadriplegia today. Oh, fuck it. I'll start Monday. Like, he doesn't have a choice. So he's just got to navigate life from a wheelchair. For Johnny, who my friend that I was just talking about, he has constant pain 24 hours a day. And I've trained him for 7.5 years. He had his accident 8 years ago. 3 days a week we see each other. And in 7.5 years, he has complained to me 0 times. Every time I see him, I hug him. Every time I tell him I love him, he tells me the same. And it is a privilege to spend time with him and a privilege to be able to just get out of this chair and go for a walk and turn on a tap and there's cold water, push a button and there's air, there's warmth. Fuck, I am the luckiest person I know.
Mate, first of all, thank you for sharing those stories. I could feel like emotion coming through there. I really love those powerhouses of men that they are a kind of a blessing to humanity. They're a message for others out there who are struggling. If they can fucking do that, we can all fucking do that, right? And I also want to touch on the fact that you said that you love them and they said they love you too, because something that I got through, one of the most beautiful things that kind of gets me emotional when I think about it, grieving in the UK, going through what I was going through. And there were several moments where I realized, fuck me, there's a lot of people messaging me. And I've got a lot of men telling me I love you. And I haven't heard that a lot before. And there was friends who turned up I hadn't seen for 25 years. And they were there at the funeral. And they were talking to me saying, I miss you. And we were talking about the times we'd spent together. And it was unbelievable. Yeah. And I was like, when we need it, it's there. And I think you something you picked up on before, you said, men aren't as bad as what we make out with stuff. When men, when the shit hits the fan, men step up. Yeah. And I felt that. And it was beautiful. And I also think if more men would say it on a daily basis, hey, I love you, brother, it means a lot, because it's hard to say sometimes. And I just thought I'd pause on that, because something that I've felt, and I could feel it coming through from you there too, Craig.
Yeah, mate. It's all that, there are things happen in your life. I'll tell you one more brief story if you want it. I think you'll like it. It's a fucking belter, right?
Please.
So 6 years ago, I was at the gym with one of my best mates in the world. We've been training partners for 20 years. His name's Mark Lampard. He was a pro bodybuilder. He looks and walks like a crab, right? So I call him the crab. So he gets called the... He gets called the...
under here, yeah.
Yeah. So we just call him the Crab. Anyway, we're at the gym. It was a Friday night. I think it was November 17. Friday night, 17:05. He was doing, so 5:05 p.m. He was doing a set of chins. He did 20 chins. He came down because he's a genius. He held his breath the whole time, which is clearly not a good idea. He'd had, I don't know, about 1,000,000 milligrams of coffee that day. He'd been working outside. He was dehydrated, and all of that culminated in a cardiac arrest.
Wow.
So he died in front of me at 5 minutes past 5 in between the cable crossovers, and he fell on the floor, 105 kilos, face down, smashed his face, blood coming out of his mouth. I won't get too graphic, and within a very short period, and no heart rate, like dead, flatlined, cardiac arrest. So I started working on him straight away. He was face down, and it's funny what happens, Ian, in moments like that. So he was probably 20, 25 kilos heavier than me. I turned him over like he was a toddler. I flipped him over. I don't know how my lower back did that because my lower back's a bit dodgy. No pain, no anything. Flipped him over. Started working on him for straight away within 20 seconds. He was dead for 17 minutes. So he went offline at 17:05, came back online at 17:22. I worked on him for 11 minutes before the paramedics got there.
Wow.
They worked on him for another 6 before he took a breath.
Wow.
And I know this sounds melodramatic, but this is just a story as part of my life. Probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done some cool things, right?
Well,
and I don't mean aren't I great? I'm not saying that at all.
No.
Because you get in a situation like that where your best mate is fucking dead and there's some interesting conversations that go on in your head and you're like, oh, if anything is ever going to give me perspective about what actually matters in the context of being a human, in the context of my life, Craig, this is the fucking ultimate teaching moment. And I've done lots of great things. I've spoken all over the world. I've built businesses and money and blah, 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 blah. Fucking none of it even comes close to being able to be part of helping him live. You know, and we still train. We're training together at 4:00, which is 3.5 hours from now. He's got a pacemaker. Thankfully, he hasn't died lately. He's healthy as fuck. You know, but it's just that's what it's about, mate. It's about love. It's about looking after each other. It's about being there. Like to me, one of the greatest gifts of my life, not his, mine, is that I could do that for him.
Brother, that's beautiful. And tell him hello from me. I feel like I know him after that story. Yeah, wow. It is. You've given him the greatest gift, but it's almost selfish for you because you would have felt so fucking good after doing that. You know, mate, that's brought tears to my eyes. Beautiful story. Thank you for sharing. Just to close, I mean, you've given us heaps of golden snippets there to help people as it is. But for anybody out there who's struggling in any form of mental, health crisis at the moment, what would you recommend? What would you say, would be a priority that maybe could assist them in their dark times?
Yeah. Well, firstly, I know you don't know me, whoever's listening to this and struggling, but I'm sending you love. I think sometimes it's about starting when you're not ready. We have this story in our head. It's not the right time. It's not the right moment. I'm this, I'm that. And it's like, sometimes it's in the middle of the discomfort and the uncertainty and the unfamiliarity and the unknown that we have to be brave. And as I say to people all of the time, courage can't operate in the absence of fear. Like courage only operates when we're scared. And so if you're scared, I get it. I'm scared too. And I'm not saying that to make you feel good. I have fear about things constantly. I worry about things. I don't over worry, but do I ever worry? Yes. Do I ever get anxious? Yes. And I just think, if you're depressed, if you're sad, if you're anxious, if you're lonely, if you feel like no one cares, You're not broken. You're normal. Like that's human. That's human. And, reach out to someone and do something. I know it's hard because, sometimes it's what we do when no one's looking and no one's cheering and no one's helping. Sometimes it's what we do in those moments that are truly transformative.
Right, great way to finish. Some real gold. Look, I really enjoy speaking to you. I really enjoy. I could converse with you all day. Let's continue. Talking. I'm gonna hit you up with an email after this because I definitely could do with some guidance on a few things from somebody who's been there, done it. And yeah. I think that was a beautiful conversation, and hopefully some men, some women, some people will get some real value from that. So thank you, Craig.
Pleasure, mate. We're friends now. So giddy up, Buttercup.
Thanks, mate. Have a great day.
You too, buddy.